Hall said, "Hey, have you seen the pictures? Asphalt all over the floor of the Coliseum." Sports Talk Mississippi with you, streaming at supertalk.fm. Gary joins us in person, but all guests appear on the Farm Bureau guest line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team, Mississippi Farm Bureau. So you watched it, Gary.
Oh, yeah.
Maximum speed was what?
65 miles an hour.
So that's like from the back line of the end zone to the goal line on the other end. And then was it slam on the brakes or just get off the gas?
It was downshift. Some of them were downshifting and on brakes. I mean, you went from 64, 65 miles an hour in less than 1,000 feet down into 40s. And you do that for 150 times to see how many times you can keep it off the wall. But it was really an exhibition race. It was a money race. It was no points. It was strictly for the money and bragging rights. And it was really impressive. I mean, I have to give it to NASCAR. They went in there and they put down 13,000 square feet of Bisqueen and then hauled in 200 loads of trucks and leveled it, packed it, and then brought the asphalt machines in there and asphalted it, brought the wall people in there, built the concrete walls around it, and built a pit road that really wasn't a pit road. It was just a lineup area. And then they came in and striped it. And as soon as the race was over with, it wasn't an hour and a half after they cleared the stadium, they started tearing everything down to haul it off. So it's probably just about torn all the way apart by now.
Pretty remarkable operation. It's fascinating to me that NASCAR is one entity in sports, and really maybe the National Hockey League another, with kind of their stadium tour, where they've been willing to do some different stuff. They've been willing to take chances and kind of think and try different things. And you can call it a gimmick if you want to, but it's all about capturing eyeballs and having fun, right?
Sure. Well, and this has been in the makes for the last 4 years. Them talking about doing this, and they finally pulled the trigger last year, and it happened. I mean, it was really amazing that when they announced it, it was like, now how are they going to do that? And even as they were building it, it was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but it turned out. Of course, it's been since 1971 since NASCAR has run on a quarter mile like that. So it's a flat track quarter mile. And you could put two of those inside inside of Martinsville, which is a half mile. And, it's just a quarter mile is not a big racetrack. And there was a lot of clean racing at the start. And then toward the last qualifying race, the people that wasn't going to make it, it started to turn into a real short track race where they're beating and banging and 8 wheels turn better than 4. And it's just it was really neat to see that and for them to pull it off, and everybody seemed to love it. Even the ratings were great. I mean, NASCAR for not Daytona or something like that, they pulled in 3.6 million or something like that on a Sunday afternoon, and it was really interesting. And of course, that they may do it again next year, but NASCAR is wanting to get a younger demographic because all you good old boys are getting to be older, and there are not as many of them as it used to be. So they've got to fill the bleachers with somebody. So they're kind of trying to get a younger crowd interested in it. And of course, it being in Los Angeles, that's probably the one place that you got more eyeballs on you than anywhere else in the country. Because it's all media out there. I mean, everything's, media out there.
Well, and they made it a show. And you, I know, remember watching in the past, they raced motorcycles inside the Coliseum a lot through the years.
They raced
and build up the ramps. And then the coolest part of the motorcycle races was they would run up a ramp up the hill and they would go through the peristyle. Now, I don't think they can still do that with the way maybe they still could, but I think the way they've expanded the stadium, you can't really do that anymore.
Well, the last time they raced there, they did. They had you came up the hill, came up the side of the stadium, and you went out, made a big horseshoe curve, and come right back down and jump back down into the stadium. But that was several years ago, the last time they raced there. But yeah, they've raced Mickey Thompson trucks there. I mean, the desert trucks, the side-by-side four-wheeler type vehicles. I mean, there's been a lot of racing that's gone on in the state, in the Coliseum, plus a couple of Olympics and Super Bowls and all kind of football. But
yeah. And they'll use it for the Olympics again coming up in just a few years. So let me ask you this. We are 2 weeks from Daytona.
Nope.
No, a week from Daytona. A week and a half from Daytona. So you got Super Bowl this week and the Daytona the following week. Folks excited about that?
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, next week they will have the Twins, which is Daytona is the only race that NASCAR does this, and they've always done it this way because it just stretches everything out. You'll have qualifying, and really qualifying, all you're doing is setting position for your qualifying race, like odd or even. And the only two people that are actually qualified for qualifying that day is the front two people. And, of course, they have to race their way in if they want to, but a lot of times they'll just go and ride around the back and stay out of trouble and start up front. Because if you wreck, then wherever you finish is wherever you go start. And, of course, they run the two races and make the field that way. And then, of course, people that didn't race good enough to get in, they're able to fall back on their qualifying time. And if they're better than a lot of other folks, they'll get to race. So it's really a kind of a convoluted way of setting the field, but that's the way they've done it for years and years. And
does everybody have to qualify, or
yes.
Are there certain people that are in regardless?
No, everybody. Everybody makes a run. I mean, it don't matter if you're the champion or not. You go out there and you make your 2 laps, and wherever it falls. And then, of course, you have to race race on Thursday. And like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, the odd numbers will start the first race, and the 2, 4, 6, 8, even numbers will go the second race. And usually, as a rule of thumb, the first race is always the meek and mild, and everybody watches their, P's and Q's. But that second race is always the one that somebody's going to get a little anxious and create some big crashes and a lot of turmoil for some folks. But it's the new car. I have to tell you, the new car, they beat and banged on the front of that thing and the rear of those things, and had no overheating, had no tire rubs, it was really amazing that they were able to beat and bang like that, and the cars bounced right back because they're not using sheet metal bodies anymore. They're using
all right. So I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you because I'm kind of the NASCAR. I'm the village idiot here. You say the new cars. What is the new car in NASCAR?
Well, basically,
this is different from last year.
Oh gosh, Richard, it is a different total car. I'm talking about. It's more of I'd call it a sports car type race car. Actually, the cars look more like the cars that they sell at the dealerships now than they did last year. The Chevrolet Camaro looks just like a Chevrolet Camaro SS. The Mustang looks just like the Mustang. The Toyota looks just like the Camry. But the thing is, though, they have changed up the total suspension. They've done away with the old-timey drag link rear end, like every pickup truck that's ever made back in the 60s and 70s had the drag link type rear end where you have 2 shocks on the back and 2 steel drag links going back to the rear axles, and that let the axles go up and that let the axle go up and down. Well, they've done away with that. You have one of these new style rear ends where the drive shafts come out of the axle to the wheels more like a modern car, and the suspension is all composite on that suspension part. It's not the springs are separate than the shocks and all that. You got coil-over springs with the shocks in them, and it's just totally different. And what's even crazier is if you crash it, there's on the back clip and the front clip, you take 4 points that's got bolts that bolt together. You pull those 4 points off, and the whole rear end of that car comes off. And you can put a whole new rear end on it instead of having to tear all the sheet metal off and re-weld everything and everything like that. The front end's the same way. You crash it, the front end's messed up, you can just take that clip, pull it off, put a new clip on it, and get back at it. But you can't
Can
do
you do
that
that within a race?
No, you can't do that in a race. But
okay.
Like if you wreck, let's say at Daytona, well, it don't take 4 or 5 months to get that car turned around to get back into race trim. It's,
Okay.
And plus, they have done away with the 5 lug nuts. There's no more 5 lug nuts. There's a 1 locking lug nut like they have on the sports cars. And everybody's anxious to see when they start doing pit stops on how fast they will. I mean, they're thinking possibly sub 10-second pit stops.
Wow. So you can fill the gas tank and change the tires in sub 10 seconds.
The trouble I'm thinking is it's going to take the gas longer than 10 seconds to run out of that 23-gallon tank.
All right, Gary, let's talk again next week leading up to Daytona. Last thing for you, got 10 seconds to the break. Is it embarrassing if a Camry beats a Mustang or a Camaro? Seems like that'd be embarrassing.
No. I mean, it's whatever you're driving. Can you imagine
getting beat by a Camry if you're in a Mustang? Come on, man.
Well, I'm a bow tie guy, so I may not,
That's Scary Gary in your NASCAR Minute.